An Aberdeen mum whose life has been shattered by long COVID is going to Germany this week for a pioneering treatment which will target tiny blood clots thought to be a core cause of her debilitating condition. There are now an estimated 164,000 people in Scotland with long COVID, according to the latest figures from the Office for National Statistics. The Scottish Government says it's spending £3 million this year to improve care for long COVID patients. My Drive Time colleague Fiona Stalker reports.
I was so incredibly tired. I was sleeping a lot of the time. And then as the weeks progressed, stranger symptoms would arrive, like shortness of breath, lots of problems with my mobility. I came out in rashes everywhere as well.
Kate Stott woke up in March 2020 with a sore throat. 2.5 years later, her life is unrecognisable.
That feeling that you get before you get an operation and you're put under anaesthetic and they say count down from 10, that is what living with long COVID fatigue is like every single day. It just feels like you're sedated.
A former Scottish Businesswoman of the Year, much of the 36-year-old's life is spent on the sofa in pain.
I feel like I've got concussion, and that sounds bizarre to anybody else who hasn't experienced this, but I can do something as little as taking the washing out of the washing machine and I feel like I've hit my head. I'm sick, I'm dizzy, and I have to come and immediately sit down again.
The mum of 3 has been hospitalised numerous times. It took 2 years and thousands of pounds to finally get a diagnosis. Tomorrow, Kate heads to Germany for treatment, which will target these so-called microclots.
When I get to Germany, I will have my blood taken. It will be tested initially for microclots and hyperactive platelets. I will then have a follow-up consultation with the doctor there. What I hope to come home with is prescription drugs that I'll be able to take here, that I'll be able to speak with my GP and my specialist here and try this trial.
Microclots are emerging as a key to unlocking long COVID treatment.
It's an impact on people from a health perspective, from their whole life perspective, from their financial perspective, from their employment perspective. This is something that affects every aspect of their life.
Kevin Deans is a consultant chemical pathologist at NHS Grampian, who's researching how dissolving these tiny clots found in some patients will allow oxygen back into the tissues and organs, effectively rebooting the body. Because
they are these very hard to break down little clots, if we can use medicines to dissolve them, and the question then is, does that allow things to reset? Does that allow their formation to kind of settle down? That could hopefully allow improved oxygen supply, blood supply to the body's organ systems. Kate is one of an estimated 164,000 people living with long COVID in Scotland. As yet, there are no long COVID clinics here. The Scottish Government told me it's for each NHS board to develop and deliver the best models of care. They say this may involve establishing dedicated services such as long COVID clinics.
Two fellies coming in.
Big ones are really coming in nicely.
Give her an apple.
Yes.
I've already ate an apple yesterday.
But Kate can't wait. She's lost enough of her life already. Her mum Adele says it's been agony to watch.
It's catastrophic. It just affects every party. It's really distressing because you don't know what the future holds. Because it's not like she's been diagnosed with a condition that you know what the outcome's going to be.
Chicken wing, chicken macaroni.
Don't sing the chicken macaroni.
For me, the hope would be to get back to normal again and get on with life.
But for Kate, that simple hope is the hardest challenge.
What a story. Fiona Stalker there. Let's talk to Helen Goss, who's the lead representative for Scotland for the Long COVID's Kids charity. Hello, Helen.
Hi, John. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Help me here. This type of treatment, I presume that's good news, but why don't we do it here?
Well, I mean, it's great that I know Kate, and I know she's had a horrific time over the last couple of years. I'm glad she's found a glimmer of hope in the long COVID darkness. This treatment may be part of the puzzle, but it could be part of a much bigger treatment regime. We just simply don't know at the moment, but we don't have any treatment here, and that's the problem. And I really wish we did have some randomized controlled trials in the UK, because traveling abroad for trials and potential treatment simply isn't an option for a lot of families whose children have long COVID. The financial burden is far too high, and travelling with a very ill child really isn't practical at all.
So Helen, we've had a text in. This is a tweet. Ellen Glasgow tweeting. And I'm just curious as to how widespread long COVID is, because I pulled up the NHS page and the list is as long as your arm. So this is somebody saying, my 11-year-old daughter has suffered from long COVID for a year. She was a healthy, happy, active little girl, apparently, who wouldn't get COVID as it doesn't affect children. We followed every rule, but she caught it at school. Overnight, she became a different person. Fatigue, chest pain, breathlessness, pains in her legs to the point she struggles to walk sometimes, brain fog, upset tummy, dizziness. She also still struggles with taste, smell. She missed most of P6 and she can't do sport. Nobody seems to listen to us.
Yeah, I mean, those are the kind of heartbreaking stories that we read every single day in the long COVID kids support services. You know, and people are still struggling to access services for their children. They're struggling to get to specialist services, pediatrics, and there literally isn't anything here for them in Scotland. So we are seeing a lot of families seeking private treatment in the UK and abroad, just desperately searching for some sort of treatment and relief for their children.
Well, I heard in Fiona's report there that the Scottish Government saying, well, it's for each local authority, local health board to come up with their treatment plan. But this list of long COVID symptoms is quite extraordinary. So the most common ones: tiredness, short of breath, loss of smell, muscle aches. But there's a whole list including memory and concentration, chest pain, lack of sleep, palpitations, dizziness, pins and needles, joint pain, depression, tinnitus, earaches, sick, diarrhea, stomachache, high temperature, cough, rashes. And we don't have any specialist services to deal with this.
Yeah, at her worst, my daughter, I counted, she had 42 symptoms at the same time.
Right.
That was a really difficult time. And there aren't any specialised services in Scotland. England do have paediatric hubs. There's mixed reviews from them, but in Scotland we don't have anything. So, you know, this is a big problem, because, you know, we have to ask ourselves, what's the risk of leaving these children and young people untreated? You know, what does the future hold for them? So, you know, we really do need some trials in the UK to get some appropriate treatment and therapeutics in place so that we can, you know, give them some hope for the future, make them feel better.
I'm just wondering, Helen, if there's some skepticism in the health profession, because, you know, we talk to health professionals, and we did all the way through, well, we do, the pandemic's still going, we talk to them all the way through, people in public health, and some of them say, look, when it comes to something like post-COVID and these long-lasting symptoms, they also exist for flu, they exist for very bad viruses. There's lots of things can cause these symptoms, and it's not just a COVID issue. And therefore, maybe I can hear you saying, yep, and maybe that's in the health profession a little bit, that sense that this can be just a general complaint.
In my experience and what is reported in our charity support services, this is extremely severe. I mean, we have children who are bedbound and who cannot get out of bed. I mean, imagine 16-year-old boys who want to be, you know, out and about with their friends. They can't get out of bed. My daughter hasn't really been out of the house much in 2 years. She hasn't been to school. She's missed an entire year of school. This is really severe, and it doesn't seem to be going away. Actually, her health is declining, and we do see that a lot in some of the children. So I think that, yes, while we can get post-viral illness with lots of viruses, I think anything that we achieve by researching long COVID and finding out, you know, the underlying pathology is potentially going to help with other post-viral illnesses as well. So, you know, it really, to me, it seems like a win-win.
So what
Just
would
wondering why we're not doing it.
Well, exactly. I was going to ask you, what do you think we need to do then? Because I know we've had various studies pushed our way, which sort of compared double-blind studies, you know, population versus people who got COVID, and analysing long COVID in both. Analysing symptoms in both sections of the population. Do you think there's just not enough work? And they were overseas studies. Do you think there's just not enough work being done to look into this, and it's not being taken seriously enough? And if that's true, what do you think we need to do?
I hope it is being taken seriously enough. On the 28th of June this year, we took some families to the Scottish Parliament to meet Humza Yousaf's Health Secretary, and he met some of the children, and they described to him in great detail how they feel and how bad they are. So, and I really hope it's being taken seriously. That took a lot out of them to go there and write letters to him and essentially beg for help. It was quite harrowing, really.
What did he say?
He said that he was very empathetic. He realizes that there is work to do. And we do have meetings with the NHS and the Scottish Government, and they are working, but everything is extremely slow. And we need to have some sense of urgency here, because it's not just a static issue. This is an escalating, ongoing situation. The more COVID infections we have, the more children, more adults with long COVID we're going to have. So, we need to turn off the tap somehow. And I think there needs to be more urgency around finding treatments.
Helen, thank you for being so forthright, and we wish your daughter well. That's such a sad story. Helen Goss, lead representative for Scotland for the Long COVID Kids charity.